Oh my God. This nigga Jaylen Green is actual dog shit. He is actual shit.
Hey. No.
You know, when I make comments about players not being good, being overrated, being underrated, or I'm even praising them, I don't just say these things from a place of contempt. At the end of the day, I'm actually happy for all these players getting paid, but when I look at a guy like Jaylen Green, I have to still be honest with what I watch, and what I watch is not very promising for this young guard. But when I point these things out, Rockets fans call me a hater. They say he's the next Kobe Bryant, and hell, some will even call me homophobic. But it's now May 5th, 2025, and I think I've been proven fully correct about Jaylen Green never being the player that Rockets fans and the organization believed he was supposed to be at this point in his career. Last night, the Rockets got eliminated by the Golden State Warriors in 7 games in a very hard-fought series. A lot of their young guys showed some potential and promise in that series. Amen Thompson, I thought, had some really good games. Sengun, even though he struggled at times, I thought he did a decent enough job. And even though Jabari, I am not high on him as a star caliber player, he was solid. Honestly, in the minutes he got, he went out there and produced real quality play. So that begs the question, how the fuck did the Rockets lose? Especially in a game where Steph Curry only scored 3 points in the first half. Well, I'll tell you, it's very simple. His name is Jaylen fucking Green. JG was abysmal. Straight up terrible from beginning till end. He had one fake ass game in game 2, and I knew it was fake from the moment he stepped onto the court. This nigga went from dropping 7 points in game 1 on 15 shots, by the way, and then proceeded to have the game of his life in game 2 with a 38-point game on nearly 70% true shooting. And I knew immediately what was about to happen, because Rockets fans were swearing up and down that this is his coming out party. This is where he breaks out in the series. He gave them niggas false hope and completely crushed all of it. Jaylen Green finished that series, averaging 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. On shooting splits, unbelievably horrible. 37% from the field, 29% from 3, 66% at the free throw line. He was the definition of going out there and doing a bunch of cardio. Did absolutely nothing in that series but hoard shots away from his teammates. This series is further proof of what I've said about Jaylen Green going back the last couple of seasons. If you think that Jaylen Green can be your franchise star or one of the centerpieces of what you're trying to build as a young core, I strongly recommend you need to get a new young core. Now, the Rockets are very fortunate that they have other players like Amen Thompson and Sengun, and hell, I'll even throw Jabari in there because I thought he was solid this year. But the Jaylen Green experiment, it needs to die, because he is never ever going to reach the conclusion y'all think. Because when I look at Jaylen, it's very clear what his limitations are and what Rockets fans are overrating about him. For starters, he is not the athlete that Rockets fans and a lot of NBA fans who look at Jaylen Green's highlights believe he is. Is he a solid, good athlete? Yeah, he is a good athlete, but he is lacking in a lot of fundamental parts of athleticism that people just overlook. He's got a first step, he's very quick and fast, but the issue is he doesn't have that real upper body strength to play through contact. And that's why we saw throughout this series he was getting bullied at times in one-on-ones against Steph fucking Curry. And I love Curry, one of my favorite players, but we all know defense ain't his strong suit, let's be honest here. But one thing he does have going in his favor, especially going against Jaylen Green in a one-on-one, is that Steph does have some muscle in his upper body area, especially compared to back in the day. Jaylen Green just doesn't have that. He gets knocked off balance all the time when he's driving to the rim, and even at times when he gets to the rim, if any big, just any player actually, gives him the slightest bit of a contest, he cannot consistently make those shots. And to be fair, we've had players who are not great at finishing through contact at the rim, but they're still great jump shooters, right? They can make up for it, i.e. somebody like a Devin Booker, who doesn't get to the rim too often, but he's one of the best mid-range shooters in the league and a great off-ball player. Unfortunately, Jaylen Green can't even do that that shit. And I'm not asking you to be a 50% mid-range shooter. I'm asking you to be a decent jump shooter, and he's not that. He's a league average 3-point shooter, which does have some value, especially considering some of that is even off the dribble. But combine that with being a 35% mid-range shooter, and you have someone who's just a below average shooter as a whole. Now you may be saying, yo, but Mustard, what about the playmaking? That shit don't exist for this nigga either. Hell, we've seen throughout his whole career, and especially in this series, if you just bring somebody to shade, if you just bring somebody to blitz, he's dead ass confused. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He can't respond to defenses treating him as a number one option in any way, shape, or form. In the pick and roll, he's definitely showed some improvement as the ball handler, but I think a lot of that really just has to do with how good Sengun is, not Jalen Green. And then defensively, I don't think he's some liability, but he's not necessarily good either. He's just kind of there. So when you wrap all that up, you have an inconsistent jump shooter who's unable to finish through contact, a mediocre defensive player, doesn't have much playmaking value, but because he is quick and twitchy and fast, that first step does give him an advantage to then have these crazy scoring explosions that tricked Rockets fans over the last handful of seasons that he's going to be their franchise player. With every single poster, with every single 30-point outing, I had to sit there and hear Kobe Bryant's name be brought up in comparisons. It was truly idiotic. This nigga has the potential to be a Jordan Clarkson, not a Kobe Bryant. And that brings me to Rockets fans, because y'all need to have an honest conversation about the decisions y'all have made over the last couple of years. You cannot keep telling yourselves that this guy was the right pick over Evan Mobley. Mobley was clearly a better prospect at the time. He is clearly a better player right now, and that will never change. And now that brings me to the answer that a lot of people want to know. Is Jaylen Green a bust? And honestly, I don't even know how to answer that question, because it would be one thing if he's not in a draft class that has a lot of really good players taken after him, but unfortunately he is, and he was the second overall pick. Aside from the fact that the defensive player of the year all-star Evan Mobley was taken right after him, you got a bunch of other guys also like Scotty Barnes, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, Josh Giddey, Trey Murphy, Jalen Johnson. And of course, I can't forget Sengun was in that draft. Jalen wasn't even the best Rockets player taken. So to really answer that question, yes, I'm gonna say it. Jaylen Green is a bust. I don't see him ever being an all-star caliber player. I don't see him ever being a franchise centerpiece. And when you're taking number 2 overall in a pretty solid draft class like this, you have to be those things to justify that spot. And I really do wonder what the Rockets do going forward, because when you look at this roster, they are really just 1 or 2 pieces away from legitimate contention. Now, don't get me wrong, they need some huge pieces, like a real number 1 option, because that half-court offense is smelly with or without Jalen Green. But I do believe in the promise of Amen Thompson. I do believe in the potential of Alperen Sengun, and I like Ime Udoka as a coach. But I think if you told everybody going into this series that the Rockets were going to lose, I think everyone in their right mind would have guessed that Jalen Green would be the reason why. And that's exactly what happened. Because if Jalen Green just gave you just like what, 5% more, they would have won this series. The nigga is just a bum, plain and simple.